Welcome to Jack's Corner, where conservative values make national headlines and truth and reality have a seat at the table. From Louisville, Kentucky, here's your host, Jack Richardson.
Hey everyone, welcome to Jack's Corner, where truth and reality have a seat at the table. And this is an exciting week. It's Thanksgiving week. I hope everybody's getting prepared for that and there's not going to be too many travel delays. But we really have something to be thankful for this Thanksgiving, and that is we're no longer going to be under the oppression of Democratic rule or a Democrat president. We've got Trump coming into office, and that's going to be very important and significant. And so I'm going to dive into some of the things I want to talk about today, but one of them is going to be about the new Trump era and what that really means for our country, for us as a people. And basically, a Trump era is where government is going to start working for the people and government is going to get off of everyone's backs. And so that's what I'm excited about. I know what republicanism is. Republicanism and Republican principles is really a pathway to freedom. Democrats don't seem to understand that. The difference between the parties is that the Democrats want you to worship them. The Republicans just want you to be free to exercise your own genius and your giftedness. And that's what we need. Republicanism basically is about increasing our human capital. That's what makes a nation rich, is it's what's between the ears of its citizens, the richness of their gifts, how they exercise them. But under the Democrats, they want to control everything you do, everything you say, how you think. And this is absolutely wrong. It's these people, the Democrats are so needy, they are so resentful that they've got to control everything. So they don't want anything good for you. It's all about them. They're up there to serve themselves, not for you. So I think that's important to understand the differences of the Democrats. And I really hate the name because they're anything but democratic, but they'll tell you that they're there to protect democracy. And but republicanism is basically what you want. It's where you're free to be you. It's where you're free to exercise the giftedness and the talents that God has given you. And we see many examples around the world where basically governments have just stripped their people of their human capital, and that is the giftedness within the people. And so that's where we grow in wealth and where we prosper as a nation. And so that's what I want to see, and that's why I'm excited about the Trump administration coming in. I see all the great picks of people. Yeah, these are disruptors, and we need disruption. That's what the American people voted for. They want people to go in there and shake up the system and get this government off their backs. And with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy coming in to basically trim down government. Wasn't it great what Elon Musk did with Twitter, now X? What is it? He got rid of, 80% of the employees? And he says, well, this is how you can run a company. The only reason that he needed those other 80% is when you're trying to censor and control what people say. And so X is doing well now, but with 80% less employees. And wouldn't that be great if we could save trillions of dollars in America and put that money back into your pockets so that you can exercise your genius and go out and do the things that make you happy. Go out and do the things that you're good at. So anyway, that's one of the things that I'm going to be grateful for and be celebrating around the Thanksgiving table this week. Well, while we're on the topic of Trump and the benefit from his administration, here's a benefit, at least for me anyway, and I know it is for many of you. Many of these sanctimonious, narcissistic Hollywood stars are leaving the country. Isn't that great? I tell you, I almost want to make a contribution to the plane trip, one-way ticket. But that is a blessing. And thank you, America, for telling these Hollywood elites that they're not all that important. Oh my goodness, it's so disgusting. And they think they're so important. And they're really not. And you know what? They talk about, how gifted these people are and how wonderful they are. I want to tell you something. When you're a lawyer and you're in the courtroom, you got to get it right the first time. When you're a pilot piloting a plane at 500 miles an hour, 37,000 feet up. You've only got one chance to get it right. When you're a doctor doing surgery, you only got one chance to get it right. But with these Hollywood elites, guess what? If they mess up, it goes on the cutting room floor, and there's a retake and a retake and a retake. You can make anybody look good when you've got a lot of retakes. So thank you, America, for reminding these people about just how unimportant they are. I'll tell you who is important. The farmer that plows the fields, that makes the food that goes on your table. Those are the people who are the stars. Those are the real, not movie stars, but those are the real stars in our country. It's the farmer and the people that do the labor that make our lives work. And it's a garbage tipper. It's the mail delivery. It's so many other things that don't get the star quality that you would get from the Hollywood elite. So let's be thankful for them. And I'm thankful again in another way that these people are leaving the country. Go ahead and leave. I think they're lying. They really are. They believe that we're just going to beg them to stay. No, leave, please. I don't think they're going to be overseas too long before they start realizing how great of a country we've got. But at any rate, that's one of the benefits of this election, and that is the Hollywood elite are leaving. Well, thank goodness. Oh, and let's not forget this one. Joy Behar said that half the country is going to be sad this holiday season. No, Joy, more than half the country disapprove of you. They disagree with you. Now, I know that's going to make you rush to your psychiatrist's office, and good, but he may not be doing you any good because he probably believes just like you do. No, Joy, more than half the country is really happy and ready for a change. And I think they're ready for the View to go bye-bye. Well, here's another interesting thing that happened this week, and that's Jaguar. I mean, I don't know if any of you all saw this. They have a new ad out, and they're basically using androgynous individuals, weirdly dressed, parading in front of the cameras. Now, this is a car company. Jaguar put an ad out using just androgynous people looking weird, doing weird things. And you know what is never shown in the commercial? The car. Now, this is what I call corporate malpractice. And there's a legal term for it called ultra vires. And it's become antiquated only, I believe, because it's gone into disuse. I think it needs to start being used. It needs to start being used by the attorney generals of various states. And these types of lawsuits need to increase. But what is ultra vires? Well, ultra vires is a legal term that means that when a corporation goes beyond its stated purpose, that its charter can be yanked. It's kind of like Coke started lecturing us on a lot of social issues and social matters. Well, that's none of their business. They were chartered to make Coke. And my belief is that, well, make Coke and shut up. We're not paying you this money and giving you the profits that you have to do some social engineering. No, that wasn't your purpose, and that wasn't the reason that you were chartered. So I think we need to bring back in this cause of action, basically called ultra vires. But also, I think the laws need to be changed where stockholders could be sued. Oh, wow. Now, you say, well, that would turn the corporate laws upside down. Well, yeah, it would, because we have executives, directors of corporations that are way beyond their stated purpose. And if you limit their immunity, the stockholders and the directors and the officers of corporations' immunity, then all of a sudden they're going to be a lot more careful. They're going to stick to the script of what they were chartered to do. So we need to stop this social engineering. These corporations are making billions of dollars, and they're also using that to fund liberal causes, leftist causes. And this is a total abuse of the corporate statutes. Another thing that happened in, I think it was 2010 under the Obama administration, is where a corporation was given more power than a person. Now, see, a corporation or a limited liability company is kind of like an artificial person. So they're kind of given a fake person status or human status. But in 2010, they took it even further than that. So now corporations have more rights than natural persons do. One of them, which is obvious, is that a corporation lives in perpetuity. None of us live in perpetuity. And none of us can contribute money to political campaigns like corporations do. This has got to stop. And I believe that even some people on my side of the political spectrum allowed corporations to spend the kind of monies that they do right now. That has to stop. So I believe that we need lawsuits with regards to the monies that they're spending, or what I would call an in-kind contribution. We've got to stop this. We need to stop the corporate malpractice, and we need to give human beings, natural people, greater rights than corporations have. They only exist at the will of the people, at the blessing of the people, through basically the charters that we give them in our state governments. So anyway, that's one point that I wanted to make up and tell you about, but I thought that this Jaguar commercial was absolutely ridiculous. So make yourself known. Let's start Bud Lighting them again. Let's start Bud Lighting a lot of companies that are stepping out of line. If we can't get our elected officials to start bringing ultra vires actions, then let's start Bud Lighting them. The way to really hurt them is in the pocketbook. You know what we've been through over the last 4 years with all the lawsuits against Trump and the judicial abuses that we see coming out of these liberal courts, that once they matriculate up to higher courts with higher caliber judges, they get reversed. We really do need more judicial discipline. A lot of these people need to be removed from the bench. But you know what they're going to be? They're going to be the liberals. You know, I have no love for Jimmy Carter, and I know he's not here for long, and he's got a lot of to answer for what he did in his life. But one of the things he did that was so atrocious as a president is he appointed some of the most corrupt liberal judges. A couple of them, I believe, were even impeached and removed from office. But that's what the liberals do. They want to legislate from the bench. They don't want to rule according to the law that the legislators passed. So we need to reform our justice system. And having practiced law for over 40 years, I can tell you that what's going on in the judiciary today is atrocious. Now, Schumer and Biden are trying to push through as many judges as they possibly can. Fortunately, that's only at the district level, but that's bad enough. One thought I had is, and to sort of bring you up to date as to our judicial system, do we really have a trial by jury? Is there such a thing as a trial by jury? But do you know, or rather, let's do it this way. Let's call it a jury of your peers. Do you know what peers means? It means of your equal. So do we even have the right anymore to a trial and jury of our peers? Well, not of our equals. Things have changed. That whole system has to change because, as most attorneys know, you don't ever want to go before a jury because a jury is just wretchedly biased. All the biases that each and every one of us has finds itself in the jury box. And I can tell you one thing that studies have shown is that the jurors, basically within a 2 or 3 minute period of time after the opening arguments of a case, have already made up their mind. So they're going to sit there and they're going, they're going to listen to the evidence, but they're going to pick and choose of the evidence what they like that supports their pre-drawn conclusion. So they've already judged you before they've even heard they've even heard the case. That's pretty bad, isn't it? Well, things have changed over the last couple hundred years, but the judiciary hasn't, and we need to change that. So we don't have a jury of our peers anymore. Who's the peer of an engineer or a pilot or a doctor or a lawyer or a corporate executive? Somebody engaged in something that is very complicated. I know I've dealt with some cases in the past where it involved very complicated corporate issues or contractual issues. And there was no way that the average juror was going to be able to understand that. And so how can you get a fair trial there? How could Trump get a fair trial in New York City or Chicago or Washington, D.C. or San Francisco? Seriously? You basically have people sitting in the juries today that studies have shown that the jurors are there now. This is their attitude. The jurors are there now to send a message. That's not justice. That's not justice. And I have a famous example. My grandfather had a case one time where this woman had a fur coat. Now, back in the old days, before air conditioning and so forth, if you had a fur coat or things of that nature where during the summer the moths could eat it up, you put it into cold storage. Well, this lady put her coat into cold storage over the summer, and over the summer she lost 50 pounds. Well, when she went back to get her coat, it wouldn't fit. So one of two things happened. Either they lost her coat, didn't give her coat back, or they took some pelts out of it. That would have seemed to be a clear and cut case, wouldn't it? Well, it went to jury, and she lost the case because the women on the jury believed, and we found this out through the bailiffs and so forth, that the women on the jury felt like if they couldn't afford a fur coat, then she didn't afford one. So these people on the jury, when they had a chance to do justice, didn't do justice, but they would demand justice if the shoes were on the other foot. So this is another reason why the jury system has to be changed, but also the judiciary system and the judges. The way we appoint judges and pick judges, it's now on a very political basis. It's what's your ideology. No, it shouldn't have anything to do with your ideology. It should be making a ruling fairly and based upon the facts of the case and the rule of law. So I could go on and on with regard to what needs to be reformed, but that's one thing that I hope in the Trump administration they will do in the next 4 years is reform the judicial system and particularly the jury system. Okay, here's a really good one. I'm going to have some fun with this one. This was a New York Times piece by M. Gessen. I think it's Gessen. Well, you'd be right to be guessing what he or she is. Gessen writes a piece, an article entitled, "What Democrats Are Getting Wrong About Transgender Rights." I want to analyze and dissect the article in just the title article. Get this: what Democrats are getting wrong about transgender rights. Now, this is a way to deal with your thinking. You know, full stop right here. What they're getting wrong about transgender rights. Well, first of all, you don't even address that narrative. Don't let them suck you in with this. And why? Well, the problem with the article is the last two words. There is no such thing as transgender rights. There is no such thing. Now, it's a mental illness, and yes, you have a right to some medical treatment, but see how they easily try to slip that in, and so many people on my side of the aisle basically are so quick to pick up on a narrative and want to argue with it. Well, if I were in court and the other side brought that up, I'd say, "Objection, Your Honor, there is no such thing as transgender right." And hopefully if the judge was of the right mind, would say, "Mr. Richardson, you're right, objection sustained." So anyway, be careful about how you get sucked into these narratives. It's a mental illness. It's medically established that it's a mental illness, but they've been gaslighting you for the last 4 years because they think that this less than 1% of the population is so important that we basically have to change what's normal in this country. So you got to be careful. Don't start discussing something that you need not go into. And another thing is that you never argue established fact. If you do, guess what? You're already going to lose. So you don't argue established fact. So basically, it's a mental illness. And when you have a mental illness, if you are a danger to yourself or a danger to others, you know what they do? They institutionalize you to keep others or yourself from being harmed. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what you do in a normal society. That's not what you do if you're a Democrat, because you're not normal. The whole party. First of all, there are no Democrats as we used to know them anymore. The party has totally been subsumed by evil and people who are there for themselves, to serve themselves, and they'll do anything and say anything to get your vote, to gaslight you, to make you think that they are the most righteous and virtuous people in the world. They're anything but. Getting back to this article, though, and I want to quote this here. Somebody wrote this opinion here, says, the Democrat Party has been hijacked with a sex-obsessed left, and if they want to win the trust of voters back, they can begin by labeling transgenderism as a mental illness. Well, amen to that. It's time to get back to healthy thinking again. And that's what the people did back on November the 5th. Here's another really important point, and I want to give you this example. I had a friend, and this was years and years ago, and had a child, a young boy, and the child was, I guess maybe at the time, maybe 1 year old. And we were over there for dinner one night, and the child was on the floor, and the father looked at the child and said, Andy, what's wrong with your foot? And the child looked down, and before you know it, the child couldn't walk, and the child started crying. And so he crawled over to his father, and his father looked at his foot, and then the father kissed the foot, and he says, oh, it's okay now. And then the child got up and walked away, and just ran away. Now think about that. That's called the power of suggestion. That's what the Democrats have been doing to you with this whole transgender thing for the last few years, is that they've not only been gaslighting you, but they are through the power of suggestion and the teachers' unions and what they're teaching your children in school, is that they are suggesting to the children that God put them in the wrong body. Well, I'll tell you what, there is no one that has been put in the wrong body. They may be put in the wrong mind, but you treat mental illness with a psychologist. You treat a physical illness with a medical doctor. So remember, when you see articles like this, be careful. You have to read carefully as to how the narrative is being cast. And in this situation, the writer, who's still trying to guess what they are, or they think what they are, very deftly basically crafted the title and slipped in there to you, transgender rights. Well, let me tell you something. There is no such thing as transgender rights. You have the right to medical treatment, but you don't have a right to transgender rights. Well, now it's time for the woke of the week. And believe me, there's more than one a week. But since this hits close to home, I need to bring it up. And I'm going to read this. A Kentucky mom celebrated her transgender son's coming out with an elaborate moving gender reveal. And the picture shows the girl who now thinks she's a boy, and who knows how much power of suggestion went into her thinking that. But they had a big old party, and she's wearing a shirt saying, "It's a boy." So that's the woke of the week. And this happened in Kentucky. You would think that the further south and southeast you get in the country, where people exercise more of a common sense, at least that's the way I see it. Even in Kentucky now, we've got this disease of believing you've been put into the wrong body. But anyway, that's the woke of the week. Kentucky mom celebrates and has a big reveal party. Well, at this segment of the show, I always take questions, and you can post your questions on bluegrasschronicles.com. Ask Jack's Corner a question. We have a listener that said Judge Juan Merchan has indefinitely postponed the sentencing hearing in President-elect Donald Trump's New York criminal case. And the question was, should Judge Merchan dismiss the case? Well, let's be honest. It should have never been brought. It was all political in the first place. And it's going to be dismissed one way or the other, but I don't think he's going to do it. He's too political. I mean, his daughter made millions off of the ads, millions for the Democrat Party, that is. But as an attorney of 4 decades, I want to tell you something. I have never seen a case, having followed this case, I've never seen a case so littered with reversible error. In fact, the error is so great, so gargantuan in this case in New York against Trump, that if the upper courts, the higher courts, had been doing their job, they would have removed him. They would have removed him, said, get him off this case. But there are so many reversible errors that the judge needs to be reported to the Judicial Removal and Disciplinary Committee. I believe that such a judge here in Kentucky would have been. You can't do that. You can't conduct your courts with such judicial malfeasance as he's done. This guy is a total political, ideological hack, which belongs nowhere in any courtroom in this country. But anyway, will he dismiss it? I don't think he will. I think they're trying to preserve it. But here's another important point. You know, under the Constitution, you're entitled to a fair and speedy trial. Well, that's not what Trump was getting. And part of that trial is also the sentencing process. And so he hasn't sentenced him, and now they're going to try to delay the sentencing all the way to the end of his presidency. What an abuse of your constitutional rights. This is so rank. This stinks to high heaven. And I think everybody in the country can see this. But that gets back into some of the things I said earlier with regards to we need judicial reform. And these type of judges have to be removed from the bench. If they can't follow the law, if they can't impart justice evenly and justly, then get off the bench. They need to be removed. We need to start exercising our judicial removal powers. We need to have commissions that take a look at how judges exercise their rights under and their powers under their courts and in particular cases that they're on. People have a right to complain about this. They have a right to bring a complaint against a judge when they have abused their discretion. And it has definitely been done in this case. So to the listener, I would say that I would be surprised if he did. If he did, then maybe he does have a sense of self-preservation for whatever integrity he has left. And I don't think he has any. But at any rate, I don't think it will. I think they'll try to take it on. And here's another important reason that they don't want to do this, or they don't want to come to a quick conclusion, is because they know that the appeals would be filed immediately. And they know that the reversible error would be entered and that the higher courts would dismiss the case themselves based upon the rank reversible error. So anyway, that's the long-winded answer to your question. Hopefully that answers your question. Well, folks, that's it for this episode. Hopefully you'll join us next week. And by the way, have a happy Thanksgiving.